Hello guys, welcome back to the city of Port Douglas and our sunny coastal region of Coniferia. Now, before I get to the theme of this episode, which I think is going to be very unique for my channel at least, it's going to be a really different build than what I usually do. We just got a few things that I would like to follow up on because I've been doing a bit of stuff off camera and I've been doing a bit of stuff to kind of follow up on some of the great feedback and comments you guys have given me. As always, I really do appreciate the insane levels of participation that I see on all my content. And as I've said many times, I do my best to read all the comments I can and react to as many of them as possible. But currently I'm receiving, hundreds of comments on the first day of my upload. So it's getting tougher, but I guess that's a bit of a luxury problem. And I'm not complaining. I'm quite overwhelmed really by the amount of feedback. I'm so happy for it. So to follow up on a bit of feedback, some of you guys have questioned whether I made sure to add some block services to this hospital since this is a procedural objects building. And that was a really good point because I hadn't actually thought of that. So I've added some block services, and if you don't know what that is, I'll just give a quick rundown. Just say block service. These are downloadable from the Steam Workshop and they represent functionalities basically. So you've probably seen me use them for like residential and office buildings that I make with procedural objects. I can add these to simulate, actual residents and actual workplaces. Because one thing I really don't like with the procedural objects mods is that it makes the object, the building, completely useless. It doesn't have any function. And I have this block services health, which acts like a small medical clinic, but I've placed a couple of them, and in total it means that the hospital now has a couple of hundred beds and 20 or 30 ambulances, something like that. So I did that little change. If we move further northwest here, I received some great feedback that kind of highlighted that if we take a look at the woodlock building here that we placed in the previous episode, then the footprint just seemed overly big. It just seemed to kind of, it was really crammed into this width space, and the height wasn't the issue. The overall building just seemed too massive for its surroundings. I hope it's visible here that I have actually adjusted it quite a bit. It's now like 25 or 30% smaller than before. It's still quite a building, so that also highlights just how big it was. But yeah, once again, thank you guys so much for the feedback. That was a nice little change to make, and I think it fits in better now with like this residential development that faces it and some of the other developments here. So that's awesome. Now, leading into what we're doing in this episode, something very different than the past many episodes. It kind of actually is the consequence of the big question I asked you guys during the last episode, and that question was, should we continue with the height restriction here in Port Douglas and attempt to get this rivalry with Pine Harbour going, or should we just go loose with Port Douglas and turn it into a really huge city right now? And I received a ton of feedback from you guys, and most of you, not all of you, but most of you wanted us to continue with the restriction here in Port Douglas and to continue trying to create a narrative of a rivalry with Pine Harbour. Whoa, this is going fantastic. Pine Harbour. Jesus. So we're gonna go with that, but something most of you, or many of you at least, also suggested when you answered with that feedback was that Port Douglas could have a designated area outside of the city, or at least outside of the city core, where developers, where the height restrictions are a little more loose and the developers can develop higher and taller buildings. So I think we're gonna go with that. We're gonna see if we can somewhere along the way develop like a financial cluster outside of the downtown where height restrictions are a little more loose. So really interesting suggestion. Thank you guys so much. Now, this also means that to continue this idea of a rivalry between Port Douglas and Pine Harbour, we need to ensure that Pine Harbour is also continuously growing because currently the foundations we've already laid for Port Douglas means that if we just continue with the medium and high density areas, then it's not going to take long before it, at least visually, has clearly surpassed Pine Harbour. So we're gonna focus on the contrast that's gonna make this rivalry fun, which is the high density versus the low density, the geographical constraints of Port Douglas that makes land value high and land very expensive, versus the geographical, ease of building in Pine Harbour. That means that the city can just continue spreading. And that's what we're gonna emphasize today. So we've got this massive piece of land here that has some open plains. It has a bit of forest, a bit of pine forest leading up this hill. And today we're gonna actually build some farming on the channel. And that's something I've never really built before, I think. I have a bit of farming that I made over here off camera a couple of episodes ago, but as you guys can probably see, it was a really quick job. It was pretty much just a proof of concept, I guess, and I learned a few things that I'm not gonna implement over here, and it served its purpose because from afar I think it looks quite alright. It actually does look like a farming area. So what we're gonna do here is hopefully a bit of a unique area actually, because what we're gonna have is a farming district where it's very visible that Pine Harbour is slowly sprawling out into it. So I'm hopeful that we can have some areas where you have, a farm next to, a lot of land where there are multiple really modern suburban developments where, an old farmer, he or she sold off the land and went to, where do you go, Bahamas or Florida to retire. And then a developer moved in and started developing cookie cutter suburban developments. So hopefully it's going to be a fun mixed district, and I'm hopefully going to be able to represent some of the bads of suburban sprawl. So less public transport and just cookie cutter homes with really small or no garden at all. It's going to be interesting. So yeah, let's just get started. Actually, before we get started, there's one more thing I need to follow up on. Many moons ago, you guys voted on the fate of this, what used to be a park here in downtown Pine Harbour, and you guys voted in favor of demolishing the park and letting investors bid on the land. Then we waited a bit so that you guys had chances to make proposals, acting as investors or developers. And we had a vote a couple of weeks ago on those proposals, and we ended up going with the high-rise shopping mall option. So as you guys can see, with that vote in place and the results clear, the city has set in motion demolishing the park, and it won't be long before we start to see construction crews and materials move in to develop a high-rise shopping mall here. So to construct these farm fields, we're gonna use two different sort of building techniques. One is we're just gonna try and incorporate the actual functioning farms from the industry's DLC. I've downloaded a couple of extra variants of the workshop. But other farms, especially those in some more awkwardly shaped areas that aren't completely square, we'd like to use some of our surface textures to act as farms. It's sort of what has been done over here as well and over here. But I guess the issue I see is that I'd like to change the field texture, because it's just, I don't know what type of farm field this would be, but it just feels a little too green. So luckily we've already got quite a bit of field area here, and then we can use Theme Mixer 2 to, let's see, change the field to one from a different theme entirely. So let's just see what we've got. I kind of like this one actually. It sort of looks like a wheat field. It's a little too bright. Orange. Interesting. Wow. And we're just going through all the different ones we have in this theme. So I think I like this coastal one the best. It has a pretty good contrast, but it doesn't stick out as much as before. Cool. So that's a good little change. It gives us a little more flexibility when creating different types of fields. So with that out of the way, I think the first thing we're gonna do is just to try and establish. We're gonna expand the road network a bit more, so that we've got some easier confinements to work within. So one thing I'd like to try and do is have like a hierarchy of roads. So this rural road here will be like the main type of road. Actually, there are four levels, I guess. You've got the rural highway, which is like the main road cutting through an area. Then you've got this more rural road with lower speed limits, and then you've got this rural road as well, still has some markings and no parking. And then you've got this rural asphalt road that does have roadside parking, but is obviously even lower speed. It's a bit more of a bumpy ride. So we'll see if we can incorporate that and make it make sense. So first I'm gonna lay out the main roads. And I don't want to have too many of these because they are the main roads. So it's fine with me if they if there's a bit of a distance between them, and then we can fill out the area between them with some of the smaller roads. And now we're gonna grab the smallest of the roads, the lowest, so to say, in the hierarchy, and add some of them in between. Cool, I think this provides a pretty good start for us. We'll be able to place down some of the very first farms and the very first suburban areas as well. The very first of these modern developments that we'd like to place. So we've built our first really simple farm this time around. I think it's important that we don't go too heavy on the details with this, but just gonna try some stuff. Yeah, as I said, this is probably some of the stuff that I have the least experience building, so it should be kind of interesting. I think to kind of showcase a bit of a fun mix-up, I'll try and create a small farm. Let's see. I think we should have a suburban development here, actually, right next to the farm. That's gonna help highlight what we're trying to achieve. It's gonna be a proof of concept what we're trying to achieve in this this episode, I think. So let's try it. All right, so I just manually added all these fences, which, note to self, don't do that again. That felt like a horrible time investment. I mean, it looks better, but man, did that take a while. Anyways, we've got ourselves a really cookie cutter modern suburban development here, and there used to be a field here. We'll see what we can do with this, but there used to be a field here, and it's been bought up now. They aren't completely finished. They haven't sold all the lots yet. Some of these odd lots have been bought, so they're the only thing developed here. The same over here, but otherwise it's pretty filled out. Now there are a couple of things that I would like to change before we move on. So I was thinking of actually making this road quite a bit darker. I think that would make sense here because I mean it's very new, right? Right, freshly paved almost to accommodate for this developer's really interesting suburban development here. We built this farm over here, which I think it looks all right. Like I said, we're not going too heavy on the details, and it's it's a bit small, right? It's a bit of a small field, so I'll assume that they will have a field over here as well, which we should try building. All right, so we've been expanding with quite a bit of farmland, and this, of course, marks the first time I've ever placed these um, industrial farm units that actually produce stuff, which is kind of cool. We got some wheat, and I think this is pears, um, and yeah, just try to add some random fields, add some of the houses of the farmers in between. I guess the only issue that I haven't really thought about is that the farms are just too small. So at least this is like a really condensed area. So we'll have to assume that some of the people that live here, they have multiple fields, because otherwise it's a bit too small. And I think this is a pretty good spot for another one of these very modern suburban developments. Used to be some farm or a field here owned by someone. Now it's been sold off to investors, and they can't wait to build some cookie cutter stuff. Now look at these trees on this playground, how tall and nice they are. Yeah, I mean, that's a little too tall, right? Let's see if we can just find a simple bush. That would be more fitting. There you go. It would be awesome with these big beautiful trees, but they just haven't really grown here yet, basically. So yeah. Now the developer here did actually decide to install some conifers, so I mean, that's nice. Look at that. Ain't that beautiful? Let's call it something. Let's call this development something cheerful. How about Sorrow Square? Fantastic. And we've got a bit of a traffic issue here, so we're gonna change up the rules a bit here. So let's see. We would like to. These guys gotta stop to. This road is the prioritized road. We'll just create some really basic line markings here. Nothing fancy. Let's see, this is the middle one. Let's go with double dashed, and we'll just reduce the width and the offset quite a bit. Oh, there you go. So just a simple setup here where this main road is prioritized. Okay, so I took a complete detour, and for some reason I decided to fix up this intersection, sorry, here in the northern Pine Harbour, where the traffic was terrible. So now I've upgraded to new roads that have more dedicated lanes, and I've added a timed traffic light to ensure that there's no congestion, and it works wonderfully. So yeah, for your information. Anyways, we've been developing this farm landscape and some of these modern suburbs, and I've sort of realized that I'm still thinking too small. I mean, these fields are very small, and there's probably just a bit too many roads. So I'm gonna try and merge some of the fields here, and then we're gonna continue development over here. Cool. I think that already helped a bit, and to me it also really highlights a bit of a lack with the industry that's provided in the industry's DLC. It just seems like the fields are really small in scale, which is a bit unfortunate. Alright, I think it's time we just take a little recap and look at what we've been building over here. So like I said, I've been consolidating a few farms over here because they just seem too small in size, which looks kind of awkward. So let's see if we can just throw on a bit of a cinematic vibe. I like this early morning look. We'll use cinematic camera extended to reduce the field of view, and we'll use ultra detail to enable the real details, and we'll just take a look. So this is the original farming area rebuilt, and I think now that some farms have been consolidated, it looks quite all right. Over here though, I tried to make the farms just a bit bigger in general. I think it turned out all right. We got some cows here, quite a big warehouse building this farmer's got going here. Added a small gas station because with a car wash, I guess that's needed around here. And then this wheat farm with wheat fields here, and some grain silos, and a barn and a warehouse. Just some small details. Moving over here, we added another farm. This time around, it's cows. Lots and lots of highland cows, and I added this tall grass and some trees around here for them to get some shade under. I think that looks really cool. And yeah, of course, we've got the train line running between the town of Tagfield and into downtown Pine Harbour, running here. And then I made just the small segment where I guess they're growing some kind of fruit tree or something of the sort, something like that. And this is actually a Dutch barn. I kind of like the design. It's pretty unique. Added a small shed over here. It's the small details that counts sometimes. And I think overall this area has actually turned out quite nice. We've got two suburban developments. This one we built at the beginning of the episode. And then we built the Sorrow Hill, or whatever we called it, up here, which is an entirely different style, I guess. And I think we need at least one more suburban development, and I think this is a perfect place, this hilly terrain here. So I think we should just get going with that. All right. So we built, what did I dub it? North Point Apartments. And this is by no means what you would call a bad suburban development, if you ask me. There are things here that could be optimized. You could build even denser, and you didn't have to do all this landscaping or have this much place for parking lots. But generally, I feel that this is one of the nicer types of suburban developments, and the density is still quite high. So we've got sort of a ring road of parking surrounding the complex. And none of the apartments have, their living rooms and kitchen and gardens facing the parking lots. Instead, they're facing inwards towards the complex, so there's real community feel here. The developer has also made taken some nice steps to make this a nice area. So they've actually brought in these trees from other parts of the regions, because they recognize that when building a relatively modern complex like this, it can take decades for trees to actually grow to a certain height. So they actually just fit in these trees that were already quite a few years old and had reached like 10 meters height. So that's a nice move on behalf of the developer. I added some sheds here for bikes or scooters or what have you, and then a tiny playground. I couldn't make it much bigger because apparently I don't have the props needed to make proper playgrounds, so that's why children are so alone here in Coniferia. But yeah, I think this turned out all right. Could have went higher detail by detailing up the gardens, the backside of the buildings, but just couldn't be bothered. So I'd rather just have an approach like this, where I think that unless you're really up close, then it actually looks quite great. I noticed something we need to fix, and that is 43 households. That does not seem right, but that's because this is actually classified as a low density building, which is kind of odd. So let's just see. We've got 3 floors and 1, 2, 3. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 apartments a floor, but probably not the top floor. So let's just say 20 units for each of these. I think that's, let's say 18 instead. There you go. So I can add that with realistic population mod, and now it's overridden it for all of these, which is perfect. And this building is basically half of that. So, and that already has 7 households. I guess I've placed one of these before and then just edited it. But let's see. Yeah, that massively increased the amount of households to 179. So we'll just see a really steep population increase. Let's just speed it up. Yeah, that's much better. We're gonna really see the parking fill out now. Cool. This marks the other suburban area that we wanted to develop in this episode. There's one more thing that I'd like to change before we wrap things up, and that's the roads. So I've sort of started using some additional type of rural roads here, as you guys can see, and used this one in particular, which I really like. So I think I'm gonna use some of these upgrade roads around this part of the region. I've named this area the Basin, and not sure why, just sounded cool. If you got a nice suggestion for these plains farming area, then let me know in the comments. But for now, I'm gonna upgrade the roads. And upgrading, I'm gonna need a new hierarchy. So I think this one is a higher step in the hierarchy than this one. So we're gonna let's just see, we'll upgrade all the way over here, and this will kind of be our new top hierarchy rural road actually. So we're just gonna throw that around. Doesn't have zoning enabled, but yeah, we don't really care about that. We can fix that. I think I'm gonna just keep this one here to cut through it. Very nice. And then we'll grab, we'll just upgrade this segment and then just grab the, which one was it that I used? It's one of these UK rural roads actually. I think it was this one, but I had removed, yeah, this one. Because I removed all the trees and grass and stuff near it, so we can use this one now. Just need to find a nice use. Maybe we'll try here. It's a bit narrow, so I'm not gonna use it all that much. It's just to break it up a bit. And this should just about wrap up the episode. So we actually got a ton of stuff done in this episode, which I'm really pleased with. I really had my doubts on how the farmlands would turn out, and I think that, I mean, it's pretty clear this is the first one we made, and I just had to try it out. It's definitely not somewhere where I have a ton of expertise, but I think that as we pan over it now, it turned out all right in the end, and I really like how we managed to squeeze in these three modern developments that all three of them look really distinct as well. We managed to squeeze them in among all this farmland. I hope that that it kind of visualizes that there actually used to be farmland here, but Pine Harbour is just slowly gobbling up more and more land whenever it's available, buying out the farmers if they are willing, and then investors and developers from the region flock in to start developing more housing units. We also, of course, built North Point Apartments, which isn't a cookie-cutter example of a bad suburban development at all, but it's still a symptom of an unwillingness to build dense within Pine Harbour. That, because you're quite a bit out of the city here, so you're really reliant on either your car or public transport. Even though it's a medium density development, then it's not really within walking range of downtown. You could probably bike if Coniferia had any biking infrastructure. We don't have a single bike lane in this region. I'm doing my best to kill off cyclists apparently, but let's not discuss that. Let's just catch these scenes as these 400 tons of steel just blast by these cows. Moo! Okay, that's weird. Anyways, I'm gonna try and shoot some really nice cinematics of this, and I really enjoyed this episode because I feel I learned a ton. If you have some tips and tricks I can use to improve this area, and especially new farming areas or rural areas we build as we move onwards, then please let me know, because it's like I said, not something that I'm super well versed in. But yeah, that was it. If you enjoy my content, if you enjoy my content, you are of course very welcome to leave a like and a comment, because it really helps spread the episode, which I would really appreciate. And of course, if you haven't subscribed already, you are welcome to subscribe and enable notifications. If you want to see sneak peeks of future episodes or just a ton of pictures of each area I built, then you can have a look at my Patreon, where that's all available. Thank you guys so much. Have a really nice weekend. Bye.